So when it comes to real estate, one of the things that we enjoy is being able to pay less in taxes. Now, in one of my previous videos, we talked about the 1031 exchange, which is a way to defer paying taxes. But what happens when the 1031 exchange doesn't work? Maybe we couldn't identify a property in 45 days, or maybe we couldn't close in 180 days. Or maybe we're getting older and we just don't want to buy another property. Well, there's one other commonly known way to defer capital gains taxes, and that's through a deferred sales trust. So in this video, we're going to talk about exactly what it is, and maybe you can take some of these things and apply it to your strategy in the future. Now, in my video about 1031 exchanges, we talk about how it defers the taxes to be paid later on in life. And if you guys didn't catch that video, we'll put it in the description. We'll put a pop-up box somewhere so you can watch it directly after this video, because there's a lot of good stuff you don't want to miss here. And that's one of the best strategies that we can do by exchanging one property for like-kind property and being able to roll or kind of grow from one property to a property of higher value. So when we think of deferred sales trust, try to think of seller financing. With seller financing, what we'll do is we'll sell the property to a buyer, and then the buyer will come and pay installments as if we're the bank, like, monthly payments until we get our full amount back. Well, the deferred sales trust is essentially the same thing, but we're going to follow a little bit more of the guidelines that we discussed in that 1031 video. So to go back to the other example that I used in that video, let's say you purchased a property for $1 million, and several years later you decided to sell it for $5 million. Well, that growth from 1 to 5, which is $4 million, you owe capital gains tax on that money. So let's say you try to go to 1031 route and you don't identify a property in 45 days, or you don't close within 180 days, and so now this is a taxable event. The deferred sales trust is essentially your last lifeline, and it follows the same exact process as it does with a qualified intermediary or a QI. So when you go and sell your property, the qualified intermediary actually holds title and then sells that property to the new buyer. Well, then the buyer is going to give all the funds to the qualified intermediary. Now, that qualified intermediary is the one that has to possess all of those funds in order to actually get the tax benefit from the tax deferment. So what does the QI do? They actually have a seller carryback agreement with you. So when you open up conversation with the QI, you're essentially saying, hey, look, I want a deferred sales trust. Well, now you're going to start negotiating the terms for the seller carryback, and you'll get the full agreement from interest rates to amortization schedule, the whole nine. So once you guys agree, you all sign the dotted line and you're good to go. Now what the intermediary is going to do is they're going to take the new buyer's funds that came in, and they're going to invest those funds however they see fit. It could be in stocks, bonds, whatever investment vehicle that they really hone in on. Now, based on the loan terms that you guys already agreed to, well, now that intermediary is going to be paying you monthly in those terms. So your interest only payments, you'd be collecting a percentage every single month, and then at the end of that term, they would pay you the lump sum of whatever the sales price was. Now, the fully amortized is just like a home, where you may have 30 years of fully amortized payments where every single month is the same amount, but it changes from how much of it is going towards interest to how much is going towards principal over time. Now, here's the kicker. Remember, this is a deferment. You're not getting away from paying taxes, you're just paying them later. So what are you paying on exactly? Now, this is where it gets interesting, because as soon as you sign that agreement and you go and close on the property, you immediately have to pay your recovery costs. What recovery costs are, it says, hey, look, I've owned this property for, let's say, 5 years. And over those 5 years, I've taken depreciation every single year. Now, when you go to sell your property, that depreciation just doesn't disappear. You actually have to pay that back. And so depreciation cost recovery is basically taking all of those years of depreciation, adding them up and putting them on a final bill right when you sell your property. Now, I know this doesn't sound fun, but this is far less than the capital gains tax that you'll have to pay on the full amount of the proceeds. And speaking of capital gains tax, yes, you still owe 100% of the capital gains tax, just like you would in a 1031 exchange. But instead of actually putting all the money into another property, what's happening is you made the sell. You just stretched it out over time. And while we're talking about taxes, it's important to understand that you'll still pay ordinary income tax on the interest that you gain as well. So you're going to be paying taxes on both the principal and the interest as you receive it. So to paint that picture a little better, if you had 8% interest only for 10 years and then you had a balloon payment at the end, well, for 10 years, you would just be paying ordinary income tax on the 8%. And then at the end of that 10 years, when you go off and sell it and you receive the full $4 million, well, then you'll have to pay the capital gains tax on that piece. One, you're not paying a lump lump sum of capital gains tax. 2, you're actually gaining interest on that amount. So instead of just getting $4 million, let's say you're getting 8% over the course of 10 years, that'll add up. What I mean by that is if you pass away, you can actually set this up in your will where this deferred sales trust will be passed down to your heirs. So this is a great way to set up some sort of residual income or passive income for the next 10, 15 years on the sale, pass it down to your heirs and allow them to collect money that's self-sustaining that pays for itself. Now there's 2 things you really need to know about this before you go out there and conquer the world with it. But first, if you find value and you want to continue to support Mike, then please hit the like. And guys, always, I really do appreciate your guys watching this and following me and leaving any other comments about any other topics that you want discussed as well. Keep it up. The first thing I want to do is give you more information that you can go and research this on your own. So if you want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, you can go to section 453 of the Internal Revenue Code, and it breaks down exactly what this process looks like. The second thing that's important to know is that there's actually a limit to how much you can protect while you're doing this deferred sales trust. If you're single, your limit is going to be $5 million worth of value. And if you're married, then that limit increases to $10 million. This is just one more tool for the tool belt. And if you guys are interested, I might make a video about seller financing too. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.